hear that something about fascism, or as the Russian president said, denazification of Ukraine. Who in the right state of mind will ever refer to Ukraine using these words? This is
what did he say exactly in Russian?
Well, he needs to.
Because I want my audience to be convinced that you know Russia, because I know you speak Russian.
Yeah, of course.
Because there are some people, I'm pretty sure.
I'm fluent in both languages.
You were both in Ukraine and.
Yes, I'm fluent and I'm very good in both Ukrainian and Russian, and I have I have to tell you, I have information in 4 languages to digest.
Yes,
so definitely I'm looking for the Ukrainian source of information, but every time when I try to go to the Russian, even today before leaving, I watched the Russian channel. It's called Rain, Dozht. It's banned in Russia because it is it's a foreign agent, as they say.
Spaghetti?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. And one thing that the Russian media, they can only get information from the government sources. So even now, if you are a free Russian citizen, and if you want to get the information about the amount of people or soldiers who died in Ukraine during these 2 days, they wouldn't be able to provide you any.
But they're saying something like 450, the Ukrainian president?
Well, the Ukrainian, it's more than 1,000 already, but the problem that in Russia, you wouldn't be able to get this information. The Russian people have no access to this information.
You mean there's a news blackout in Russia?
Completely. No, it's not. They are just following the government source of information. There's no free media in Russia. And there is a law in Russia that if you try to use any information from other sources, you can be fined and blocked from future broadcasting.
You were teaching in Ukraine?
In Ukraine, yes. I
so,
worked at the university.
Right. So you're studying in Ukraine as well, right?
I did my studies in Russia.
In Russia, right. So you have seen both the countries. You studied in Russia, then you were a teacher in Ukraine. So you saw both the countries.
Both countries and both societies.
But when the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, he said very clearly, almost like the Chinese leader is saying that Taiwan is inalienable part of China, almost the same rhetoric. Vladimir Putin was saying that historically, Ukraine belongs to Russia.
And this is lying.
Right.
This is lying.
Now, before I go into this, you have your family there.
Yes.
Your brother was in the army?
Yes.
In the Ukrainian army?
Yes.
What was his rank? What was it?
Colonel.
Colonel. So your brother was in the Ukrainian army, and he was a colonel.
Yeah.
How are they doing now? Are they okay? Your family?
Well, they're fine, obviously, as in every Ukrainian citizen is exercising his rights to be a retired person.
But what about the Ukrainian government? Has they ordered your brother to service?
No, as he is 60 years old, no, he hasn't been called off. But other men from yesterday, aged 18 to 60.
Yes, they banned them from traveling outside.
Yeah, they banned, and they go to those groups of protection, self-defense. And people are going and people are doing that. My nephew is doing that, and he's organizing the self-defense group.
So basically, even your nephew's life is at risk at the moment.
Yes, that's correct. But he's doing
it for the country.
A lot of my friends, Right. If you watch the Ukrainian sources of television, like what I'm doing, well, and when they show the queues, and when you see that, and the problem is that you go to different internet resources or different TV channels,
Yeah.
They show pictures from different parts of the country, but this is the same picture. And people are queuing up to be enrolled to the self-defense groups and get the ammunition and guns to protect.
Right. Let me explain to my Bengali, just in case they don't understand some of the words that I'm saying. উনি ইউক্রেনে ছিলেন এবং উনি একজন ব্রিটিশ ইউক্রেনের নাগরিক। ওনার নাম হচ্ছে ইউরি তাজরিমানভ। আমার সাথে উনি কাজ করেছেন ল অফিসে বহুদিন। উনি বেশ কয়েকটি ভাষায় কথা বলতে পারেন। উনি ইউক্রেনে উনি টিচার ছিলেন এবং রাশিয়াতে উনি পড়াশোনা করেছেন। উনি ইউকেতে চাকরি করেছেন। উনি আর্জেন্টিনাতে চাকরি করেছেন এবং উনি বহু অভিজ্ঞতা সম্পন্ন। ওনার আপন বড় ভাই ইউক্রেন আর্মিতে উনি কর্নেল ছিলেন। ওনার বোনও ওখানে আছে এবং উনি বলছেন যে বর্তমানে আসলে এক্স্যাক্টলি কি ঘটছে ইউক্রেনে এটা রাশিয়ানরাও খুব একটা জানে না এবং তারা সত্য কথা কখনো বলে না মানুষকে, এবং সেখানে কোনো ধর্মীয় স্বাধীনতা রাশিয়া ছিল না। এর জন্য সে রাশিয়ার কোনো ফ্রিডম অফ স্পিচ কখনো পায়নি। কিন্তু সবসময় বরাবরই রাশিয়া এবং ইউক্রেনের মধ্যে একটা পার্থক্য আছে এবং রাশিয়ান প্রেসিডেন্ট এখন যে কাজটি করছে সম্পূর্ণ গ্রস ভায়োলেশন অফ হিউম্যান রাইটস। এবং বর্তমানে যে কাজটি ভ্লাদিমির পুতিন করছেন তাতে করে ওনার পরিবার সহ সবাই এখন রিস্কে আছেন। ওনার নিজের ভাতিজা উনি ফ্রন্ট লাইনে আছেন বিভিন্ন দেশের কাজে এবং ওনারা অত্যন্ত জীবনের রিস্ক নিয়ে নিজের দেশকে, পুরো ইউক্রেনিয়ান নাগরিকরা দেশকে ডিফেন্ড করছে।
So
you're saying it's not part of Russia.
Well, it was a part of the Russian Empire.
Yes.
That was
1,000 years ago.
19th century, before 18th century. Even if you go to some scholars of Russia, they would say that's how it was. It was a part when the Queen Ekaterina.
In late 19th century.
Yes, exactly. Until, let's say, 1970.
Yes.
17, when the Soviet Union.
Then Polish.
Yes, that was before that. Yeah. From here and there, they were under Austria and Hungary, and the Lithuanians. But you go centuries and centuries back. But to say that they were a part of Russia, no, they were a part of Russian Empire for a period of time. But then, in 1917, after the revolution and the establishment of the Soviet Union, it was one of the republics, one of the 15 republics of the Soviet Union, and with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, they all became independent countries, and they are happy to become to be independent countries nowadays. If you look at everything around.
Now, if we are going back in history, I saw that in the late 10th century, there was this man, Vladimir something.
Yes.
Vladimir the Great.
Yes.
Who in fact unified the empire. The Russo.
Vladimir in 1988, he baptized.
988. Yeah.
1988.
988. Yes.
This is the date of when he baptized. Before it was called Kievska Rus. So it wasn't Russia.
Right.
That part, let's say country, was called Kievska Rus. And obviously the center was Kiev. In 1988, when he was baptized, Moscow never existed. Moscow appeared at next century.
Right.
So to question, well, let's say this way, to question now who was first, chicken or egg?
Right.
I think it's unnecessary. We are facing the problem nowadays. We have an invasion of an independent country. We have a war.
Yes.
History apart. Violation of human rights, the violation of international law, violation of the rights of the country to exist.
Why? Let me divert the discussion a bit. Why Russia wants to have an iron grip on Ukraine? I found a few reasons. First of all, Ukraine used to be a CIS nation.
Yes.
right?
Until
Until
2014,
2018
yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
So then after that, one of your presidents, who in fact was looking up to Russia, he had to flee Russia in 2014.
That's correct.
And also, I found that Russia gave Crimea to Ukraine once.
In 1950,
yeah.
okay, let me put it in right perspective, because
Yes.
if you ask Russians, and unfortunately Russians don't have access to all sources of information. Their sources of information is very limited. And even if they want to argue with an official line, they can be in trouble. But let's say this way: the Crimean Tatars can claim that Crimea belongs to them.
Yes.
When the Soviet Union was established in the 1920s,
Yes.
that part belonged to the Russian Federation. That's correct. The
In
Germans,
1922.
yeah, the Germans used to live there.
Yes.
But the Germans worked hard on that land. The Crimean Tatars lived there, but they had to work hard
And the Kazakhs
to
as well.
grow something. Yes, there were not Russians there, not a lot. In 1954, the Crimea was transferred from the Russian Federation to the Ukraine purely for the economic reasons. The Crimea didn't have water. This is just desert. Desert and a piece of land in mountains and trees. So economically, to support, to sustain Crimea, it would have been reasonable to transfer to Ukraine.
Right.
Because the Ukraine had the Dnieper River, and the Dnieper River is a very big river. They built up the canal and they put that water to the Crimea. So the Crimea became a very nice place for agriculture, and people live there.
So basically, they want the Crimea basically to have a footing on the Black Sea. Is that right?
Well, the main reason that the Crimea was annexed, stolen,
Yes.
is just to put their military ships.
Now, to be fair, to be neutral,
Yeah.
what
Sorry
I
to
found out-
interrupt you. I have
what
an
I found out-
observation.
silence, please.
Okay.
What I found out that if you see the coastlines of Russia,
Yeah.
except the Black Sea side, the entire coastline is frozen. So it is very difficult for Russia to maneuver their ships unless they can use the Black Sea
In terms of what?
in terms of warships.
Okay, if you look at the map of Russia, we have a very good piece in the Far East.
But that's you're talking about Sporia, Korean side.
Yeah,
Korean side.
next to the Japan.
Yeah, but to
They can
trade in Europe or even to guard against European Navy or NATO Navy, they need some Black Sea. Is that right?
Well, they have Black Sea. They have
Mhm.
the southern part of the area, and they have
And
excuse me, I can't imagine that the question is to guard the area. They need to annex Crimea. They have the area.
they slaughtered your sovereignty for their
We have many countries in the world
Mhm.
landlocked.
right.
Does it
Mongolia.
mean- thank you. Mongolia, Belarus, does it mean that they have to go and invade and claim some piece of land only for the sake so I can put the ship and do the trade from there?
Mm.
I
And
think this is a very outrageous position.
and then also, when the Warsaw Pact was there,
Yeah.
in 1955, 1955 it was
Yes,
so,
1955.
after the NATO,
Mhm.
most of the Warsaw countries are now NATO countries.
Exactly. Thank you.
Now, without Poland, without the northern side of Germany,
Mhm.
it's almost impossible for Russia to launch an attack. Am I right? If they ever want to go to war with NATO.
So attack who?
If there is a war between NATO and Russia, without Poland being able to go through Poland,
Mhm.
or there is a corridor in Germany, because otherwise it's hilly. They can't enter Europe. Am I right?
Yes, you're right.
Is
but
that the
I-
reason why Germany is silent?
Well, I think Germany is silent partially, as I told you before. That is my understanding. I'm not
Mhm.
trying to impose.
Right.
Last century, we were witnesses of two world wars. And both these wars were started by Germany.
Yes.
And even if you go now to Germany, you will feel that sense of, they're still trying to heal the wounds because they know what they had done.
Ah,
So sometimes I'm trying to understand why Germans are not in the front line of any military assistance, unlike the United Kingdom or the US.
they gave only 5,000 helmets and some.
Yes, they gave some
Medical
helmets.
supply or something.
Yes, they have gave some helmets, and just only yesterday they stopped the certification of the Nord Stream 2.
But Nord Stream 2 that hasn't started even, right? That hasn't
The
started.
Nord Stream.
Yes, it hasn't even started. It's a
No,
private
they
venture.
haven't started, but they were in the process of certification. Certification normally takes some time, up to several months.
But some of the European leaders are saying that it is a private thing and we shouldn't get involved in some manner.
Well, we can't say that this is a private. This is a private matter between Germany. Well, we can technically say this is a private matter between Germany and Russia, but from Germany, it goes to other countries. It goes to France, it goes to the Netherlands, it goes down to Austria.
Now, technically, something else. Let me update you.
And let me tell you one thing. The idea of the Nord Stream 2 was to divert gas from Ukraine
Yes,
independently to Europe.
that's right. Let me explain.
This
to
is a
you. That's fine.
political case. Yeah.
উনি বলছেন যে আমি বললাম যে রাশিয়া তো আসলে পুরোটাই ফ্রোজেন সমুদ্র চারিদিকে। ও বলছে যে কোরিয়ান সাইডে যেতে পারে, আর ব্ল্যাক সি ওদিক থেকে না আসলে তো রাশিয়া তার নিজেকে সমুদ্র নেভিকে কিভাবে ডিফেন্ড করবে। তো ইউরি বলছেন যে এর অর্থ কি এই যে আরেকটা দেশের স্বাধীনতা বা সার্বভৌমত্ব বা নিজেকে ডিফেন্ড করার জন্য আমার দেশের স্বাধীনতা সার্বভৌমত্ব আমাকে জলাঞ্জলি দিতে হবে? অনেক দেশ আছে পৃথিবীতে ল্যান্ডলকড, যেমন মঙ্গোলিয়া ল্যান্ডলকড। তো ডাজ ইট মিন যে তারা
আজারবাইজান
হারিয়ে ফেলবে চায়নার জন্য? এটা হয়। এবং আরো বলছে যে জার্মানি এবং ওখানকার পোল্যান্ড ওই সকল দেশগুলো আসলে তারা দ্বিতীয় বিশ্বযুদ্ধের পরে এবং প্রথম যুদ্ধের পরে তারা একটা অন্যায়টি করেছে, তার জন্য তারা এখনো যুদ্ধের সাথে জড়াতে কোনো রকম ইতস্তত করে, এবং তাই তারা জার্মানি উচিত ছিল ইউরোপিয়ান ইউনিয়ন লিডার হিসেবে ইউক্রেনের পাশে আরো সক্রিয় হয়ে দাঁড়াতে, কিন্তু তারা কেবল সক্রিয় তাদেরকে দেখা যায়নি। আর আমি তাকে বললাম যে পোল্যান্ড এবং রোমানিয়ার ভিতর দিয়ে যাওয়া ছাড়া এবং জার্মানির নর্থ দিয়ে যাওয়া ছাড়া রাশিয়ার কোনো রকম নেটোর সাথে যুদ্ধ হলে ওখানে ম্যানুভার করা কিছু থাকে না। কিন্তু ওর কথা হচ্ছে এন্ড অফ দ্য ডে আমাদের স্বাধীনতা সার্বভৌমত্বের মূল্যে কেন? ওকে, নাও কামিং টু দ্য কোয়েশ্চেন অফ sanctions against Russia.
Yeah.
Russia supplies the bulk of European energy. And I have done some studies,
Yes.
except the Norway and Iran and Qatar and some of the countries like US. Where will European Union get their LPG gas from? If they're saying that we'll get the LPG gas
The
from
US.
the US.
Yes.
So
Just before New Year, when the prices of gas were
they're already going up.
in the
Yeah.
sky, yeah,
Yes.
but they were up in the sky. After they've sent several tankers from the US, it's just collapsed in the price.
So basically, at the end of the day, with this invasion, America is going to become richer. Although Britain is not that much dependent on Russia or the energy.
I wouldn't think about America
Mhm.
in these circumstances. We are saying about,
They're talking big. Why are they not helping more?
well, they are helping
You think are you, as a country, you are happy with the help that NATO is giving?
in terms. Well, America yesterday announced sanctions, and they put in the list the VTB Bank. This is one of the main banks in Russia. And Russia from today has no rights to do trades in US dollars, in pounds, in euro, and in Japanese yen.
Do you think they're going to find alternative for that? Because
No, they will go to China, but we all know that the Chinese yuan
there's no
is
limit
not-
in cooperation. That's what China said. There's no limit in cooperation with Russia.
Well, I wouldn't be so optimistic when it comes to China. We haven't heard anything from the Chinese property market, which was bailed twice.
Why do you think suddenly, when all the sanction thing going on, China is meddling in Taiwan? They started meddling in Taiwan.
Well,
already?
Maybe they have seen they've been doing that before.
But they're
They've
using
been doing
this,
that
using,
last year. and
but
we've
using
heard
this
about
time,
that.
using this timing
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
So they talked about SWIFT, the transfer code, the SWIFT not to be allowed to Russia. But they haven't, the European Union hasn't really decided, hasn't been able to unite on this.
Three countries rejected:
Right,
Italy,
Mhm.
Germany,
Yes.
and Hungary.
right. But you see, Hungary was part of Warsaw.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah.
And Hungary always thinks differently from the rest of Europe.
Yes.
So do you think this proves there is still some allegiance to the Soviet era?
I wouldn't say the allegiance to Soviet era. I would probably say it's they have a very interesting prime minister who sometimes when we listen to him, he opposes to many European rules and regulations and laws. And sometimes you think, maybe that's not very bad. But when you think what is undercover, and I know that there are mono-nations, there are poly-nations, but to be so obsessed with a mono-nation of 10 million people who heavily relies on the European money, and in terms of migrants, be a bit of unwelcome. And from the point of view of the country that experienced the Russian or Soviet Union then invasion in 1956, when the tanks swept the streets of Budapest, when the Hungarian people wanted some freedom.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I just ordered something.
That is
Excuse me. Sorry, excuse me. Can I order some drinks? Are there orange juice for me? Orange juice? You?
and I'm fine.
Just order some. Sorry. Go
So
ahead.
yeah, so when it comes to Hungary, I'm a bit concerned.
Now,
I
many
respect their choice, but at the same time,
Kazakhstan produces gas.
yes,
Kazakhstan is still a CIS country.
yes,
There are 9 CIS countries who have, strategic pact with Russia.
yes.
So military-wise, Russia can't be taken out, I think. Am I right?
Taken out of
If there is a war or under any circumstances, do you think Western powers can ever threat Russia militarily?
Western world is not threatening Russia.
But they,
It's-
can they? Well, are they able to? Because of the CIS country, because of Chinese pact, they are not.
No. The Western countries, they don't
Because many of the of my,
No, no, no,
our
no,
fellow
no.
countrymen, they're saying,
No.
but why didn't NATO go into help?
well, you have well,
Because they're not NATO member anyway.
exactly. This is the only reason that if you're a member, yes, the NATO country will step in. If you are not, you have no right.
Well, they
That's-
invaded Vietnam in history in the name of defending it.
You know what? There was something 10 years ago. There was something 20 years ago. There was something 30 years ago. And I've been told, oh, look at that example. And look at that example. I said, well, these are the examples we need to learn from, not to repeat. Because in the end, innocent people will suffer.
Let me
As it
explain
is
to them
happening
thus
now.
far. উনি এখন পর্যন্ত যা বললেন যে আমি যে বললাম যে রাশিয়া আসলে অনেক সিআইএস দেশগুলো আছে যেগুলো আগে সোভিয়েত ইউনিয়ন ছিল, যেমন কাজাকস্তান, উজবেকিস্তান, তাজিকিস্তান, এরা অনেকেই এখন সিআইএস কান্ট্রি, কমনওয়েলথ অফ ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট স্টেটস। নাও এই দেশগুলো সাথে রাশিয়ার সামরিক চুক্তি আছে। তো রাশিয়া কি কখনো কি সামরিকভাবে আক্রমণ করার বা হুমকি দেওয়ার মতো ক্ষমতা নিয়ে রাখে কিনা? ও বলছে এটা কখনো, থ্যাংক ইউ ডাল, এটা কখনো রাশিয়া করবে না, কারণ সেই যুদ্ধ সম্ভব নয়। দ্বিতীয় তৃতীয় বিশ্বযুদ্ধ লেগে যাবে, এটা সম্ভব নয়। হাজার হাজার মানুষ, লক্ষ লক্ষ, কোটি কোটি, শত শত কোটি মানুষ মারা যেতে পারে, তাই এটা সম্ভব নয়। তাহলে মিলিটারিলি এটা সম্ভব নয়। আরো আমরা আলোচনা করলাম যে স্যাংশন গুলি দিয়ে রাশিয়াকে সমর্থন হবে কিনা। ও বলছে অলরেডি রাশিয়ার অনেক ব্যাংকের টাকা রাশিয়ানরা এদিক ওদিক তুলতে পারছে না, কারণ রাশিয়াকে অলরেডি ডলার এবং অন্যান্য কারেন্সিতে কনভার্ট করার ক্ষেত্রে ওয়েস্টার্ন দেশগুলো বাধা দিচ্ছে। আমি বললাম যে তাহলে কি অন্যান্য কারেন্সির দিকে মনোযোগ দিতে পারে কিনা রাশিয়া? বলছে চায়নার দিকে যেতে পারে, কিন্তু সেটা খুব সফল হবে বলে সে মনে করে না। তাই আলটিমেটলি ও বলতে চাচ্ছে যে রাশিয়ানরা ওদেরকে আমাদেরকে স্যাংশনের মাধ্যমেই মোকাবেলা করতে হবে। সো what is the future? What about this president of yours who used to be, an actor?
Yeah.
Seems to be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong again. Jews were persecuted in Ukraine by Russia.
Yeah.
In 1933, a famine was imposed on Russia, on Ukraine by Russia.
Yeah.
To force them on their knees, basically. Now,
It was the same in Russia, but they just don't tell about
don't tell. Now, do you think that this president, he was doing it too quickly about declaring that they have no choice but joining NATO and
I
all
think
that?
he was doing that unprofessionally.
Unprofessional, right?
That is my
what should have been done? What should have been done?
that's my personal opinion. That certainly it's the question of choice. To be a president, you have to have at least some background in diplomacy, a general knowledge. That wasn't the best choice of the Ukraine,
Now,
and sadly,
Ukrainians are paying the price. Now, what about the future now? I think Russia will force him to resign and put a Puru in his place.
it's one of the variants. I hope it's implausible, but it can happen.
But because Crimea, when they took Crimea away in 2014, that the main reason was the Pride period, right? Am I right? In 2014, there was your president had to flee the country, who was pro-Russia.
No. He took off the Crimea
Mhm.
purely to
punish.
to use that as a military base. Additional.
But 2014
military-
timing, your president ran
military-
away. And then,
Well, that's what I say. That's what presumably good neighbors do. If you have a problem in your house, and instead of helping it, let me come and occupy one of your rooms. I know it's a very simple question, but every time when someone tries to ask me or justify, I said, how can you? Imagine that your daughter is ill. You can't go to work.
right,
Yeah, fine, thank you.
right.
Let me use that. Let me go and live in your room.
They help you.
Exactly. He never cared about Crimea. Crimea now is a horrible place. It's heavily militarized.
And
Where
there's nothing there,
where
basically.
people used to go and enjoy the sunshine on the beaches, everything is closed. It's being used for military purposes.
Okay, let's take some questions.
Yeah.
Can you turn on your camera? Any of you, if you have a question to ask, Mr.
We
Ram,
can have a
to
look
you.
at your. Good evening again. Oh, good
Yeah, you have to
morning.
speak up a bit.
Oh, good morning to you already.
Have a question?
I have a question to Mr. Yuri. I'm so glad I meet you here. Do you think Chernobyl disaster is included with this current situation of Ukraine?
Sorry,
Can you repeat your question?
I couldn't quite catch. Could you repeat, please?
Do you think Chernobyl disaster is included with this current situation?
Right. Chernobyl disaster. Do you think it has anything to do with the present crisis? Chernobyl, taking control of Chernobyl. Do you think it's part of the target?
It could be. It could be.
Because because we hear something that by the Russian government in 1985 who stopped on the Chernobyl nuclear plant, and they disappeared, or they nobody knows what happened to them. So I'm just interested about it.
Before leaving and meeting you, yesterday I read that the Russians occupied the territory of the Chernobyl nuclear station, and today, just before leaving, I read the news from the Ministry of Environment Ukraine, who alerted about a bit high level of gamma radiation in that area.
Really?
Yes, the Ministry of Environment Ukraine already announced that. The problem is that everything is saved and covered in that place. It's a no-go area. So the military lorries or tanks or anything, even if they travel, they can disbalance that level. And sadly,
Oh my goodness.
this has already happened. I'm truly sorry. I'm
My
dreading
goodness.
of thinking. But the problem is that when a madman starts war, he wouldn't care about himself.
Right.
The level of gamma radiation is already up.
আমি একটু ব্যাখ্যা করি।
Thank you.
উনি ওনাকে প্রশ্ন করা হয়েছিল যে চেরনোবিল যে ডিজাস্টার হয়েছিল বা ওই এলাকাটা রাশিয়ানরা দখল করেছে, এখানে কোনো রাজনীতি বা কোনো রিস্কের ব্যাপার আছে কিনা। উনি বলছেন যে চেরনোবিলে ওখানে অলরেডি কি ঘটছে জানা মুশকিল, তবে চেরনোবিলে ওখানে মিলিটারি ঢোকার কারণে ওখানে অলরেডি দেখা যাচ্ছে যে ওখানে গ্যামা রেডিয়েশনের লেভেলটা বেড়ে গেছে। এটা কোনো ভয়ঙ্কর কনসিকুয়েন্সেস ভবিষ্যতে আসতে পারে। ওকে, লাস্টলি, what do you think the future holds for your present president?
The president,
Will he resign? He's going to leave?
I don't
Ukraine?
think that he is going to resign. I don't think he is going to leave. I hope so.
Mhm.
What I know for sure that the Ukrainian people won't leave their country.
Will he be
And
killed?
the Ukrainian military. Well, there is one thing we need to learn from the Ukrainian history of the Ukrainian people. If you steal something from them, if you offend them, they will come back and take it back. This is the spirit of the Ukrainian people.
They're very brave people, that's for sure.
These are very brave people. If you see the amount of help, just today, just yesterday, we even had it here in Britain, the news. A woman was walking down the street and she saw Russian soldiers, heavily armed. She comes to him and says, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?"
What a brave woman, huh?
Yes, and then she said, "Take some seeds, sunflower seeds, put it in your pocket, because when you die, at least we will have new seeds from your death." And this is woman turning to
Russian
a
soldier.
man, Russian soldier, standing with arms.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, it is already quite late, I know, in Bangladesh, and we do apologize that we are almost an hour
Sorry
late.
that we were so late,
Yeah,
but
sorry about that.
we wanted to talk to you openly.
Right. If any of you has any question, you can
Yes,
ask.
I have one question.
He's
Oh
from
yeah,
America.
please do.
Mr. Yuri, as far as I know, Ukraine is called as a basket of the world. So do you think this war,
You have to speak up. Say that again. Sorry.
Ukraine is called the breadbasket of the world, as
Big basket.
Ukraine produces a lot of wheat, corn, and other crops. Do you think this war will impact the production of wheat, crop, and other crops, and the world will suffer?
And the world, will that have an impact on the world?
Certainly, it will have an impact unless everything is going to be resolved very quickly.
Right.
Ukraine is a producer of a lot of food. That the land is so brilliant. It's not only wheat, it's chicken, it's sunflower oil. I know it's being exported to many
Asia?
countries in Asia, and I
Right.
hope to Bangladesh. I know definitely to India, to Pakistan,
Then Bangladesh, 100%.
to Gulf state countries because they have a lot of land to produce that. Unlike Russia, I don't know whether you know, but the population of Bangladesh is similar to the population of Russia. And if you look at the map, I know you know geography. If you compare, nothing compares. Yeah, exactly. But if I tell you that Russia buys potato from Bangladesh nowadays, this is how efficient that country and system is.
Being such a
Yes.
biggest country in the world.
Yes, yes.
Right. I think
I'm
it's-
afraid definitely.
I have another question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Ukraine used to be the part of Soviet Union and used to have thousands of nuclear missiles, bombs, and other strategic weapons. Why did Ukraine give up its nuclear arsenal and its strategic weapon? Now it's
Well,
suffering.
They abandoned the nuclear
No.
arsenal in 1994, according to the Budapest Agreement that was signed between Ukraine, United States, France, Britain, and Russia. By abandoning, all these countries promised the integrity and territory of Ukraine will never be questioned. This was the reason why Ukraine
that was
agreed.
1994.
1994. This was the reason why Ukraine signed that agreement, because in good faith, they believed that abandoning nuclear weapon, they will be protected by this agreement, which, as you have seen, was violated by Russia in 2014. And sadly, yesterday on the 24th of February, 2022.
Now, I have
Um,
my last question as well. Again,
Yeah.
what the future holds, do you think, for your president? This is the million-dollar question. He's going to leave the country?
I don't think he will be able, but still, how to say, it's
Definitely, he's not going to be able to hold on to power
It's
after this invasion.
it's a very difficult question, because today, just before leaving, I was watching all this. The Russians were trying to surround Kyiv, the capital,
Yes.
but they were kicked back by the Ukrainian forces.
How long?
Now, this is the question. I don't know, because definitely one of the plans of that Russian president, I don't want to mention even that name, is to remove the current government, the current president, the current parliament, to put his own people and sign an agreement promising that Ukraine will never think about joining NATO or European Union.
Right. Can you lastly say something for the Russian people? And if you want to say something to Vladimir Putin, even in Russian, we don't mind. Or even to your Ukrainian president in Ukrainian, you can.
To the Russian president, I would say, knowing Russia very well and knowing the problems,
Can you say that in Russian? Yes.
I want people to understand.
You know why? Let me tell you why. Because I don't want anyone to question,
Okay,
that you are.
зная все те проблемы, которые в России сегодня, зная всю ту нищету, ничтожность, мизерность жизни в России, неужели вам больше нечем заняться, как искать новые семьи? У вас их столько.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you.
for your
Thank you
time.
very much, gentlemen.
And we apologize again for being late.
Apologies and
We're happy to have Yuritar Zimanov with us.
yeah,
Thank you again, and we hope that your family will be okay,
and the whole country.
and the whole country, and we should have a
Thank you for
good solution for everything.
Thanch you for your
Thank you very much.
interest and
Peace to
thank
the
you.
world. Peace.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.